All right, now let's talk about strings. Now, as we saw in the previous video, it's possible to get a file to be read as a single string, as a list of strings, or as each line of the file as a single string. That is the for looping. So what we'll focus on is what we can do with strings. And the way you want to think about this is that this is the next feature or the next object in the chain. If we're interested in reading a file from a file object, we know we're going to get it in one of three forms. It's either going to be a single string, a list of strings, or it may be each line as a single string, each line in sequence as a single string. So now we're going to look at how we can manipulate strings, because remember that our original idea was to take a file like this, a CSV file, and one of the things that we're going to do this week is sum up each of the values in a particular column. So what we're doing really is building together different features to get this done, and we're looking at each of the object types in isolation. So what can we do with a string? Let's talk about what we can do with a string. We can, for example, split the string. Now what I'm doing with split is divide it into a list. As you can see, what I'm getting back is another one of those list objects. Now, we haven't discussed lists yet, except to say that a list is a sequence of objects. That is, it's a container that contains other objects. When we split, and as you can see, we're splitting on a delimiter. When we split a string on a delimiter, we are dividing that string using the delimiter as a way of isolating each item or delimiting each item. So this is the first item, that's everything up to the comma. Then this is the next item, that is everything up to the next comma, etc. As you can see, this list contains strings, and we haven't really talked about a list yet, but you can see that each item is separated by a comma. Now this comma is not actual comma. In fact, I should show you the result if we were to use colons. That comma that you see below in green is just syntactic. It's just showing the difference, or it's showing each item, and it's just showing each item with some sort of separator, syntactic separator. It's not part of the data at all. It's just separating it for it syntactically. So for example, I'm going to just change this file to make sure I've got it. If I run this again, you can see that I used a colon separator this time. So what does that tell you about the argument to split? See this colon here? I changed this when I changed the delimiter in the line. Obviously then, this string delimiter here marks what Python will use to identify an individual item. So it goes all the way through 19260701, encounters the colon, and then says, there's the delimiter, that's my first item, everything that I read up to that point. Now I'll continue, I'll do 0.09 colon delimiter, it'll then create the second item. So this is how split works. It looks for the delimiter, takes that particular item, makes it an item in the list, and then finally returns a list of items that will be as many as there were delimiters, or really one more. So the first item, colon, the second item, colon, the third item, colon, the fourth item, colon, the fifth item. This list has 5 items, and we will look at how lists work in a minute. The next thing we can do is strip the string. So if we're interested in stripping the string, we might want to get rid of that new line character. You can see that that new line character is part of the last item after split. That new line character can cause a lot of problems. Maybe not serious problems, but still, they're ones we're going to maybe want to avoid. So we can do that by stripping. So this is different than split, isn't it? In fact, we've got a method called rstrip. And if I print this line, or actually if I do my split after that, that's what I'll do. And I run it again, I'm going to see that that new line is no longer there. Why? Because rstrip takes a string, or it works on a string rather. You can see that this line is a string. It's a string method. And the string method removes the new line, returns a new string with the new line removed. So this is actually two pieces in a chain. And when we looked at the for looping, I should probably bring that up. When we looked at the for looping, we saw that we were able to loop line by line through the file. And remember, you can see on the right there, var is a line from the file. So that's why I gave you this line to work with, or for this demo, a comma-separated values line that allows us through split to split it into items. But before that, we did stripping. We stripped the line by removing, in stripping the line, we removed the new line character. The strip method will remove new line and other white space like spaces or tabs from the end of a line, not from the middle, but just from the end of the line. That's why it's called rstrip. It means right strip. So we've stripped the line. We get back a new string in this line because rstrip returns a string. We then split the line, got back a list, which gives us each individual items. And so then we see that result. There's our list split into items. There is another method that we're going to want to work with called split lines, which I'll look at in the next video. But before we do, I did want to show you one other thing. That is the join method. Now we're not going to use the join method in our homework, but I do want to show it to you because it allows us to do the reverse of split. So here, if I take a print new string, I think you're going to see that what I did was, and notice I'm starting with a comma separated values line. I'm stripping the line to get rid of the new line. I'm splitting the line on a comma to get back a list of items. And then I'm doing the reverse. I'm joining. Let's see the result. As you can see, the same line now has been reconstituted as a single line with colons in the middle. Now, how did that work? Well, join is called on a delimiter string. You can see this is the same kind of one-character string that I used on line 7 to indicate the split on a string, to split a string into items. Here I'm doing the reverse. Join is the reverse of split. Join takes a single character delimiter. We call join on that delimiter. That is, it's also a string method. It's a method being called on a string. The syntax is a little weird because we're actually calling a method on a literal string in our code. Normally, we call a string method on a variable name. But here, we're actually calling the join method on the literal string, and we're passing it a list. So what we're able to do is take the items from the list, and I should probably print those items as well, just to show you the whole sequence. We start with a single string. We then split it into items, and then we join or reconstitute those items into a new string that's joined on the colon character. This is just what we decided to do this time around. So it's kind of interesting to see how you can manipulate strings. You can start with a single string that may have some sort of delimiter in it. You can separate it out into items, and then you can then reconstitute it into a string using join. We separated them into items using split. So this is strip, split, and join. These methods allow us to manipulate strings in very flexible ways, and when we get to lists, we'll see how we'll be able to use the split list to look at individual items within the list.